then and when they were drafted. Look at that. You got 2000 all the way up to 2017. Wow. It is interesting.
Drew Brees looks the same. The exact same.
He doesn't change. Tom Brady looks a little different.
Yeah, it's not a slim fit shirt.
No, you're right. All right, so we're excited about those. There is the Superdome right there. It's Gumbo Week. The Rams.
Gumbo.
They're back as promised by Marcus Peters to see the Saints, though this time a Super Bowl appearance is on the line, so a little different. Let's take you out to New Orleans, where Steve Wyche and Jane Slater have the latest on the Rams and Saints. And Steve, how are the Rams feeling ahead of this game?
Well, look, you would never think, Jane, that losing Todd Gurley for the final 2 games with a knee injury would be a good thing for the Rams. But in hindsight, it actually has turned out to be. First off, they made the phone call to C.J. Anderson, of course, in 3 games, has had more than 100 yards rushing. But also, in speaking to some coaches this week, they said they could tell that Todd Gurley had worn down because he nearly had 100% of the offensive snaps. So this gave him a breather. In fact, Jane, I was speaking to run game coordinator Aaron Cromer this week. I said, have you noticed any more bounce in Gurley since he returned? He basically said, if you turn on the film of Gurley early in the season in games and in practice, you're seeing the same Todd Gurley now. So that 1-2 punch of Anderson and Gurley, fresh leg, that's something that the Saints did not see when they met in Week 9.
Well, and it's something the Cowboys certainly saw when they faced him last week, and they had few answers slowing down both Anderson and Gurley. And look, the Saints are this week without their defensive tackles, Sheldon Rankins. A huge blow to that defensive line. You know, it was rookie Marcus Davenport, the defensive end, who said what they've lost really is the on-the-field coach. When he's missing a block or he's not feeling good out there, it's Rankins who's able to help them make the in-game adjustments, but it's next man up. So they'll look to go to guys like David Onyemata and Tyler Davison. And it was Demario Davis, the linebacker, who they picked up in free agency this year, who's really taken a lot of pride in what the defense has been able to do. He said, look, this is the sort of Drew Brees offense that can put up 40 points, and that is a blessing. But Michael Jordan had to have a Dennis Rodman. And so there are a bunch of Rodmans on this defense. Their goal is get the stops, get the turnovers, get the ball back to the offense. So everything goes through them, and they know this is going to be a challenge today. But you know what? These other guys got to step up today.
Yeah, I'm really interested to see how this Saints run defense looks without Sheldon Rankins out there, because it trickles down, too. That's going to affect the back end of the defense as well. Yep. Guys, thank you. We're going to talk more about that. But the Rams and the Saints, 2 of the elite offenses this season. L.A. second in points per game, yards per game. Oof, rushing touchdowns. While New Orleans is 3rd in points per game and 6th in yards per game, 1st in rushing touchdowns. You guys can see the graphic there yourself. You can read those numbers there. So the masterminds, though, behind both offenses, Sean, both spelled the same way. I mean, they both are really good at their job. So what do you expect to see from Sean tomorrow?
Which one?
It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Hey.
I love this game. I mean, it's going to be so many. The evolution of offense is going to be on display. And Sean Payton, he's been doing it for a very long time. I'm sure Sean McVay has used some of Sean Payton's schemes and all of those types of things. But I think it's embodied in Taysom Hill, one of the backup quarterbacks for the New Orleans Saints. He makes so many critical plays. People, and it doesn't always show up. He doesn't have a lot of stats. He's like 3rd or 4th on the team in rushing, has some passing yards, anything like that. But like right here, this was a critical 4th and 1 that kept a drive going in the first time that these two teams played. I think they're setting teams up for some type of double pass or something, because Drew Brees is still on the field every single time that this guy comes into the game. I think they have something like almost 200 snaps with both quarterbacks on the football field. I think I have an affinity for this guy because this is kind of a role that I was in coming out of college, and it's very difficult to play that role because oftentimes due to week of practice, there's not enough time to go over these plays. So his quarterback background kicks in, and that's how they're able to provide some interesting.
I remember when Lamar Jackson was that guy.
Yeah. That's a whole nother conversation.
Totally different.
So you won't have that right now?
No.
That look says no right there. Exactly right.
What do you expect from Sean McVay or Sean Payton this week?
I don't know what happened. I was just listening. One of the things I really love is Sean Payton will do whatever it takes to win this game. And sometimes we'll get into a little bit later is he sometimes get too aggressive. But when you really look back last week, there were some key moments that it didn't have anything to do with the defense. It was purely Coach Payton saying, look, we need to change the tide. And on 4th down, right? This season, 81%, 3 of 16. They're saying, you know what? We're going to utilize what we do well. We're going to sometimes use our main guy, Michael Thomas, be a decoy, to open it up with other guys, and we know we only have this one shot. So let's go. Then on 4th down, you have Hill. I don't like saying his first name because he's BYU, so you got the guy, Hill, who's in there. He's the PP. He's also very muscular, very athletic. He runs downhill. He runs very much like a running back. They give him the ball, and he surges forward, and everybody gets it. Sean Payton will do whatever it takes, no matter when and where on the field. And we had some old coaches. I was watching one of the other networks, and one of the coaches said, I would have never did that. You knew he was going for it. Well, you were a coach for 2 or 3 different teams, and exactly why you're on the network is because you would have done the exact same thing that Doug Peters did. Assume that he wasn't going to do it, and he did it. That is what distinguishes Sean Payton from what he is and why he is so successful. He is willing to gamble with his own money, not house money.
Yeah, and I think, too, since we've talked a lot here about Sean Payton, we got to talk about Sean McVay. And
yes, we do.
There's 2
Seans.
Yes, and I think, too, this year it's spelled the same. He's become more comfortable with his play calling and more comfortable with the fact that the Rams are best when they are a run-first team. They're best when everything goes through the run, and then the passing game concepts are built off of that. That makes Jared Goff feel so much more comfortable out there. And then when you add a back like C.J. Anderson in, that only helps. And we've seen how he's gone away from 11 personnel and he's using more 12 personnel and bringing the tight ends in. And that's just helping them so much right now. But I think he got away from the run a lot earlier in the year, especially in the Kansas City game. It was like he wanted to outduel Patrick Mahomes.
I think he realized what he had in his quarterback, and his quarterback in the guy that's just going to go out there and win the game with his arm.
Isn't a guy you said?
Isn't the guy that's going to go out there and win the game with his arm. His quarterback should be in a complementary role right now, leaning on this run game and designing plays coming off of the run game so that you utilize that strength up front. This is a dominant offensive line up front. As you can see, it doesn't matter who's running the football. The holes are right there.
It was a combination of things. I think Gurley was wearing down a little bit because of that knee issue, so they wanted to back off of him a little bit, and then we found out later, oh, he's managing that knee issue. But when they started to scale it back, at that time, we thought he was completely healthy. So I think there were a number of factors why he kind of went away from that. But they had a hell of a game plan last week against Dallas. They're playing into Dallas's strength by running the ball like that. And you saw the emotion in the locker room after the game when he said, hey, offense, being able to run the ball on those guys the way that we did, you got to have faith in your guys. And I think that speaks to the other end of McVay that we don't talk enough about because, these coaches want to hire these young, smart, offensive guys because they think the scheme part of it. The other part of it is being a head coach. So this guy not only is smart when it comes to the X's and O's, he knows how to handle that locker room. And coming into the season, they brought in guys like Ndamukong Suh, and you got Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib. You got all these personalities. And I remember talking to him in training camp. He says it's not about getting to know the whole. It's about getting to know each individual person. And I remember one of the Rams execs was saying, I was walking by the bikes. I think it was Peters and Talib and McVay. And he's talking about hip-hop acts with these guys, getting to know that. Sean McVay's
he's relatable to him.
And when you know your pieces, you know how they all fit together. And I think that's the untold story of what
he's doing. But not just being relatable in hip-hop. He is having a dialogue and understanding which guy, an individual guy, what their likes and dislikes are. He's cultivating a real relationship, which is sustainable. And that's why this team is sustainable. And he also relates and looking at his own self-evaluation. Week 6, 38 rushes, 34 rushes. Week 7, week 16, 40 rushes. But in their 3 losses, Bears, Eagles, Saints, 52, 61, and 46, all the pass attempts. 12, 16, 15, only run attempts. This team is better suited when they establish the run and they play man on man, not being that razzle-dazzle. That razzle-dazzle gets them in trouble at times.
That's true. Well, we'll see if the Rams can continue rolling. Sean McVay and Sean Payton going up.